I'm going to show you how to paint metal can. So we're going to actually draw the can from scratch. I might do a quick job. Let's see what we get done. I want you to try this out. Try out the metal. You don't have to do a can specifically, but you could try one. You can always just take a can, trace it if you want, and then try painting it, or you can draw it in yourself. I'm going to end up drawing mine in, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a new document, Photoshop. And I finally got my mouse part so I can actually put a USB mouse into my computer. So that came in the mail today. And I'm just going to change this to 8.5 by 11. I probably should be using my stylus though. But anyway, we'll just go with this for now. It doesn't matter. All right. And let me hit later here. But I hit nothing. I don't even know what I just did. I wasn't paying attention. I got distracted. Let's go with letter, inches 8.5 by 11. Hit create. I hit close, I think, accidentally. What the heck's going on? What in the world? Oh, there it is. Wow. Okay, I never had that. That was slow. My computer's like brand new. All right, I don't really know why that just happened. Anyhow, all right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mood board. So I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to get myself some cans. And I'm going to talk about reflected light real quick. We've talked about this in the past, I believe. But you have your highlight, transitional light, middle values, core, and then you have this little bit of a reflected light, which makes things look a little bit more rounder. And we have to pay attention to that when we're drawing our cans, okay? And you have like a glow effect in the background, but done with a shadow, which is pretty cool. I mean, we could try something like that with our can if you want. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this tab here, and I am going to find myself a can that I want to copy. Now these are actually drawn in programs, I believe. See, it's 3D rendering. I want a real can to copy, so I think I'll go to this website here. Now these are super shiny. I want something a little bit more duller, but we could go with this for now. I don't know. I mean, I could even go with this Diet Coke can here. But I mean, I don't know. Let me look real quick. Let's see what we could do. That's Pinterest. That's totally not what I wanted. We do this in class. It's like taking a real class. All right, so anyhow, PNG images. What's this guy? Let's take a look at this one. Well, maybe we could try mimicking this to some degree. It's got the tab up here. It's going to be a little hard to do. All right, so I'm going to copy this. See what's below real quick. No, lower. I mean, on here, on this thing. Come on, let's go. There we go, the inside one. That one's a little bit different type of perspective. We could take another one if we want. Oh, look at that with the droplets. That would be fun to do. You guys don't have to go that crazy, though. I think I'm good with this can. Let's see. Yeah, we're good. I'll maybe take a less shiny one. So let's go back to this, and I'm going to just paste this in. I did copy it, right? All right. So let me go back. I thought I copied it. Maybe I did not. I keep doing that. Wrong window. I gotta copy the link. I want to, because I just can't copy the image. All right. Let's save image. Let's save the image to the desktop. All right. So we're going to bring this in. Move this tab over here, double click, unlock the layer, hit OK. Use my move tool, move it over here so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit, so I'm hitting Command T. I'm going to enlarge it. I'm also going to, go even bigger actually. Now, if you feel like you're not that good at drawing, I'd like to make, try to make an attempt to draw it in. If you don't want to draw it in, I will allow you to use the magic wand. So you could try drawing it in using the pen tool, or circle, something like that, or we can go ahead and we could trace this one, and I'm going to show you both. Just give me a second here. All right, so for this, there are shadows and stuff like that happening here. So I have a feeling that I'm going to use background eraser or something. Let's see what we have here. We have an eraser, magic eraser. We'll do magic eraser. Did I erase the whole background? It's hard to tell. So what I'm gonna do is, 'cause it's hard to tell, I'm gonna put a new layer in. I'm gonna color it like a purple or something like that. Dump the paint in. Move the layer behind it. Alright, alright. Well, I mean, it did cut out some of the white areas up here that I didn't want to. So I'd have to use a lower tolerance if I didn't want that to happen. But what we're doing right here is we're just cheating anyway. We're going to trace this can. And that was just more helpful if I got rid of the background, because there were so many gradations happening in the background that the magic wand would keep looping over and looping over. So I use my magnetic lasso. Actually, the fastest way to do this now at this point would actually be to select the outside and then subtract the inside. So let me do that. What should we do here? We could do that first. Well, I wonder if we do that. Let me see. Could have did object selection probably. But anyway, I'm going to use magic wand. I'm going to select the background. Wrong layer. Helps if you're on the right layer. I do this in class all the time. All right, so like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to select inverse, so it selects the can. I'm then going to take this away. We'll add to this and then take away from this. That's the fastest way to go about this. So I'm just going to zoom in. And I am going to go ahead and use my regular lasso tool. I'm going to hold the shift key to add to this selection. I'm going to go really, really slow around this part here. And I'm going to then hit Alt Option key to subtract that itsy bitsy part out right there. Then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, holding the space bar as I use the grabber tool. Helps me navigate around without having to zoom in and out. Then I'm going to use my lasso tool again. I'm going to hit Alt Option because I'm going to delete this from this area here. So I'm going to go right around the edges here. I'm going to do it in segments, so this way it's not... There's a piece right there. See it? All right. I'm going to do this in segments. And I can always go back in with my quick mask if I do a poor job in this section right here. But I think might be okay. Not if I'm doing that. Alright, so I'm going to go back in right here with the quick mask. I'm going to make it a little bit neater than what I just did. So I'm going to go ahead and use my eraser. Remember, the quick mask reacts to the black and white right here. So essentially, if I could use a brush or I can use an eraser, it doesn't really matter. So if I go to my eraser, for instance, and I paint here, I subtract, which would add to the selection. If I switch the foreground background to where the white's in front, then it adds. So you actually can use either or. The eraser and the brush will do the same thing depending on what color is in the foreground of your background foreground tool. Alright, so let me go ahead and switch them back. Let me get a little bit bigger. I'm going to make sure it's on like a softer brush. Soft brush, so general brushes. Okay, so I'm going to delete right here. The reason why I'm doing that is I like the way it blends into the background a little better. I can always make it crisp later. And actually in this one, doesn't matter so I'm just using it as an outline. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a back harsher brush, like a more stiffer type of brush here. Alright, so I'm going to zoom back out, see what we have. If I'd like it, which I do, I'm just going to go ahead and I am going to hit the quick mask. I'm going to go to select, save selection. I'm going to save this as can. Kind of mess up down there a little bit, but no one's going to notice when we're done painting it. So I'm going to talk about can. Then I'm going to go to select transform selection. I'm going to move this guy over here on a new layer. So I'm going to hit return on the keyboard. I'm going to click new layer. I'm going to put painted can. And I'm going to use this as, you know, instead of drawing, I'm going to use this. Now what I could do at this point is I actually turn my selection into a path, and then I could stroke the path and I could have a nice black line all the way around it. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the color for my path to be. So I'm going to double click here. I'm going to make, I could do black. Black might be a little harsh. It might be like a middle gray or something like that might be better. Something like that might be better. Oh, and the word paths. You see this palette that just popped up called paths. I'm going to collapse this one because there's no reason for that to be open. Now we have more space. So paths is right here. So right now I'm going to tell it make a work path off of my selection. Right now the tolerance is 2. It might be too small. I don't know. I'm going to try to see if it lets me do 12. Hit OK. No, it has to be between 10. Okay. You know what? We'll do 4 should be fine. All right, so now it's a work path. I'm not really sure why that's not working. Maybe I didn't have it selected when I did it. I thought it was. So essentially, basically, I'd select the path like this. Should work. It could, maybe it's only, let's just see. Oh, it did it this time. I don't know why. My guess is it just wasn't selected properly. That's all. So there's 2 different ways to do it. You can fast forward this, pause it, whatever, and you can see both ways that I did it. All right, so this path itself doesn't print, so you can actually get rid of this blue thing. Or we can save it for later, or we could turn it back to a selection. Doesn't really matter. So I could go back to where it says, you just want to get rid of it because it's in our way because we're going to paint there, right? So where it says paths, we're going to change this to a selection, and then we go to select, deselect, and if we want it later, we can always bring it back, because it is still here under paths, okay? So I'm going to move this around just this layer to make sure this is exact, oops, wrong tool. Move tool usually helps. And see what we have here. So this is what I have to start painting with. Now I could fill this in a nice medium gray and work from there. And then try to hand paint in the lights. We could pretend the light's coming from the right primarily, or the right top, or we can make the light coming from the bottom. So this is going to be, I mean, if you want crisp lines like this, you're going to have to use a lot of selection tools. That's what it's going to come down to. You can always draw them with the path tool to make very crisp selections. A lot of people don't do that. So say if I wanted something like this to be super, like, you know, selected super well, I can do something like where I could draw it with the pen tool, and I want to, you know, just click here. I click here just like an Illustrator. Some of you love Illustrator, right? So I'm going to do something like this, and then over here, do another one, and then come down here, you know, maybe do another one, maybe move that down a little bit before I move on. And then end it, right? And then you saw me using, and I could smooth this all together later to make it fit better, but you saw me using this before where it says paths, right? So we actually have a work path, and I could turn that into a selection, and I could fill that in differently. Now I'm going to save this as can top. So I go to select, save selection. You're going to see my can still actually there. If I go to channel, it's under the word can, and I go always select my can again. So I'm going to say can top. All right. So I'm going to deselect this for now. Select, deselect. I'm going to fill this all in gray. Now I have 2 options here. Because I have a closed shape, I could just use the magic wand and then dump paint in it, or I could go to select, load selection, come over here where it says channels, and actually select can. Oh, selecting this can. Well, I'd have to move this selection over. I had to resave it so it comes in the same area. So technically I could hit transform selection and just move this whole thing over and make sure it lines up properly. And I can smooth out the edges later on. And hit return on the keyboard. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump a nice middle gray in there. I can even select it off this can if I want. Use a paint bucket and just dump it in there. All right. Now the next step would be to go ahead, and I'm going to go in with some lighter tones. Just use a nice soft brush, and I copy this selection over, and I fill them in. we could do that where I move this selection over. So if I go to select, transform selection, I move this guy over a little bit, right? Not to do the top of the can, but just to try to mimic this, what's going on over here. And I hit return on the keyboard. Now, what I could do is I want to make sure this stays nice and tight. All right. So what I could do is I could add to that selection. I could use magic wand. I think this will work. I hold the shift key. I sit outside the can and I add to the selection. So I'm holding the shift key, magic wand, went outside the can. So I think the paint is going to end up right here. Now, it may not, may end up everywhere else, and I might have to inverse it. I have a feeling that might end up everywhere else. Let's just try it. We'll just see, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and make this a lighter gray. And we're going to go ahead and paint real quick. Oh, yeah, it's everywhere else. Look at that. The outer marquee that's blinky was giving that away. All right, so I go to select inverse. I do this all the time. I'm going to right click my mouse, make it a little bit bigger, and I can just paint on top. Or I can, use a paint bucket for that matter. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to blend this later. Unless you want to do, if you don't trust yourself to go ahead and, hand paint it. And I'm going to then do this next section. I'm going to keep that dark gray, that mid gray. And this section, I'm going to want to do something like that. So I can use the can selection option again, where I went to, I can, let's do it this way. I use a magic eraser. Let's see, magic, no, not eraser, selection. We'll do selection. We'll do magic wand, select the outside. And then I can select a nice square area in here. So I'm going to go to select inverse. When it selects just the can. And I can then, do another stripe here. And then I could blend them slowly with a nice highlight of some sort. But we can't forget the more reflected light. So we'll have another really thin one here, and I'll brush that one in. So let's try to get this stripe in. Now I can move this over until I get that stripe, or I can then, or I could just, paint it in so it doesn't go out. So I think I'm just going to paint it in. I think this is probably easier for me. Well, it depends on what's easier, what you're more comfortable with. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tilt this one a little bit and then come straight down. You see I'm not as straight as if I were to draw a nice square in. And I can erase that later if I want. And right now I'm painting on the same layer, which I probably shouldn't be doing. But we're just going with it. We're not trying to mimic it exactly. We're just trying to paint metal, right? So right now we only have two tones. We have a very light gray. I'm going to have to put some of that back. And, not quite a highlight, but we're getting there. So you can see how much softer the edges are compared to the very harsh edge. But this is easy to fix. I just go ahead with my blend tool. Where's that at? Smudge. I lost smudge. Where's he at? It's hard for me to work with it like this. I normally work with my toolbar like this. All right, so smudge should be here then. Okay, see, I found it much faster because I work a certain way. You just get used to things over time. I could do a very harsh edge here, and I kind of blend it in a little bit. I'm going to spray white right on top to try to blend it in more too. And we have to still put the shadows in the bottom. And I'm just going to make this gray at the bottom because that's what it's going to end up being anyhow. Right. So it's going to be reflections. I keep saying I don't know why. I guess I feel like I have to talk. Yeah. Let's stop doing that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint, a highlight right there. I'm going to change the opacity of my brush, make sure it's soft. Nice soft brush. I'm going to change, where's my opacity changes? There's a strength. Oh, I'm on smudge. I was like, what's going on? All right, opacity, I'm going to change it to like 50%. Soft brush, and we're going to go ahead and just paint right on top. I'm going to change a layer in a second because I don't think this is going to be a good plan for me, so I'm going to undo that. And this way I could blend it easier. I'm going to go smaller. I'm going to go down the middle of these things. Going smaller and a little bit more opacity. Erase some of that. And I can because I'm not on that other layer anymore. I'm erasing it at a curvature that I'm going to have this at. I'm going to do the same down there, but I already kind of messed that up a little bit, so I have to hand paint that all in anyway, right? Alright. So I'm going to change opacity a little bit on this. As I work, I'm going to add some darks into it and lights. And I think that we were good with the opacity the way it was. Alright. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get some darker gray tones. And I can make another straight edge if I want. I can move this selection around to help me. So I go to select transform selection. And I can move it around. So I have a hard edge to work up against. Ooh, percentage, we're at 79%, right? So I wanted to go a little bit darker, but that's okay. Alright, I'm going to put a slight bit of darkness over there too. So I'm going to go to select transform selection. I'm going to move this around again. I can make that a little bit better. I'm going to blur this all a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to, why am I saying so many times? The internet. The internet. Alright, so there's no reaction. That's why there's no class here. But you guys are. Maybe. Maybe I didn't scare you away yet. So I'm going to move this selection over. Again, I'm going to do a brighter color. I change opacity really light. Just do kind of a reflected light thing going on over here. Very gently. And I'm going to blur all this in a second. There's an Gaussian blur. Now, the thing is, to paint the metal, what I'm doing is I'm creating a darkness, alright? And then the darkness is going into middle gray, and the middle gray is going to a light, into a highlight, and then it's almost reversing itself. But if you want something that looks like it's reflecting from all different sources, you don't have to be as straight edges as they're doing in this. Like I'm moving mine around, I get some straight edges. You don't have to have all straight edges. It depends on, you know, the surface. If you want it to look more like a metal can, I guess you want more straight edges, but I could fix all this. Right, so I could just take this, select, transform my selection again, move this guy over again, line him up a little bit, drag it down to have a straight edge to work with, and I'm gonna try to mimic that lightness, but right now it's at 14%, that should work. We'll cover that up. That's what I'm doing. I don't want you to copy me exactly, but I'm creating a value scale if you want to picture it that way. So from a light to dark, and then from a dark to a light, and it's looking like it's more rounder that way. We have our little bit of reflected light that we're going to have at the bottom of the can. I still have to put in the top of the can. I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and put it in the tab. It's a lot of work for, you know, a demo on metal. I think that I will probably opt not to put that in, but we could try it out. We'll see. And it's, yeah. So I'm going to go to select, stop saying deselect. And I'm going to select the top of this. I can do the bottom too. And right now it's looking interesting, but if we don't start filling in this top, we're not going to know what else to do down here, because right now we have a lot going on. So, all right, let me go to select, reselect, bring my selection back. I have to move it again. All right, so didn't realize I was going to have to move it again. Alright. I'm going to add a stripe here and a stripe there. I'm going to do that using, I think my best bet for this would be the pen tool. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a path here. And the selection just, I guess, is working as a guide for me. I don't know. You know what, maybe I'll just delete that one. Let's go back. Let's backtrack that to here. We'll go here. I'll have to move that one in a second. Alright, let me delete these guys. I don't know if that's gonna work the way I wanted it to. Probably not. Let's see. I'm gonna drag my guides. I'm gonna hit my rulers. I'm gonna make sure these guys are even. Drag my rulers down. We'll do it the right way, right? Let's use the white arrow. What am I doing? Direct selection tool shall work. Alright, and I'm going to put another guide for the center. Yeah, because when I deleted that one, it didn't really work out the way I planned it. So I'm going to have to add another one in there. I'm going to leave that one down there. I'm going to drag that one up here so they're not all uneven. And I'm going to add that one like I said. So okay, now I'm going to deselect that. And I'm going to move my guides. So I'm going to go to view, guides, clear guides. And I have a lot of filling in to do up there. All right, so this path I'm going to change into a selection. I'm going to save it. I'm going to need it again. And I'm going to go ahead and paint in a dark, a little bit darker here, a little bit darker up top. And then we're going to try to mimic these curves. I could do it on another layer to start. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick off what I already have. So I'm going to use this guy right here to get this darker color. And I'm going to go a little bit darker. Oh, it's at 14%. I was like, where's all the colors? All right. So 14%. All right. So we have this darkness happening, but unfortunately we're not going to want this all over. So because this, you know, is highlighted here, so I'll have to go back and highlight on top of it. But as long as we have this as a start, this should work well for us. All right, so let me go back and pick out a highlight, change opacity. Opacity is kind of still very strong, unfortunately. So I'm going to go to edit undo. I didn't really like anything I just did. Alright, I could have went to history and just did that too. I'm going to go really subtle. And then I'm going to go a little bit more harsh. Now you see in the middle here, we have another row that we had to take care of up a little bit higher. No, we should probably edit, it doesn't matter. We're not doing exact anyway, right? So there's another bar here, see the darkness here, that you could go ahead and put little tiny little highlights on that. We can extend another highlight down here. I'm going to put another gray back in because we took a little too much out. And I'm going to put a little bit more right here. I'm going to add an opacity change of some sort. We need to add a little bit of gray here, I think. There's a darker gray here. It's got to go darker even. And then we can go ahead and zoom way in and put like tiny little slash marks of highlights there, like itsy bitsy. We could do that. And this is from far away. This is really not. It still looks kind of metalish. We still have a lot of blending work to do if we were to make it look 100% realistic. But for illustration, it's not so bad so far, you know. When we go ahead and draw more in and add a little bit of highlight here and there. Maybe not use so many soft brushes. So we go back here and use a little bit of harsh brush again. Dark gray. Much smaller. So it looks more solid. We can even put a darker underneath that. Super slow. It's a subtle change. I mean, it all depends on what you're using this type of stuff for and how much detail you go onto on every single item that you create. And this is, you know, pretty sufficient for something that's pretty far away. Oh, that's way bad. Okay, underbrush. Let's go back to soft for that. I'll go ahead and put a be 100% there, you know. Just mimic it a little bit, and then we could go ahead and put a little highlight right there. was a little too big of a stroke. A little one. They don't all have to be the same. I'm going to deselect, and I realize that we have uneven areas over here, and it's not a huge deal. I'm going to zoom out for a second. Now, it's not looking identical to this can. Again, that was not the goal. I am going to put more highlight here and there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. We're going to use some of the photography tools. We're going to do dodge and burn. So burn's making it darker. We could do that. We go around, make some of the areas a little bit dark. Ooh, it's too dark. But we make the shadows a little bit darker. So this way it doesn't hurt our highlights. All right, and then what we could do is we had to do right there. We had to do dodge tool, and we're gonna dodge some of these colors out. It's too harsh. Remember, this is on top, so I go back to this layer, and I can do the same thing underneath. Wait a second. Yeah, okay, so we have to go down one more. I'm on different layers, so I have to keep playing back and forth. Eventually I'll put them all together. I'm just adding a little bit more highlights in certain areas. Okay, it's gotta be on this layer. I'm gonna put a shadow down there in a second. So I'm gonna go down to this tiny area down here. I'm gonna put a nice shadow down there. I'm gonna use my burn tool. This is way too black. Okay, undo. And we're gonna change exposure to like 13%. It's probably way too dark, but alright, so we have to extend some of this. I'm on the other layer, extending some of this out a little bit. And this has got more of a lip down here, so I'm going to put a small shadow down here. So I'm going to go back and probably reselect it again, probably my best bet. So if I go to select, load selection, can, hit OK. Oh boy, we have to go all the way back. Oh, it's looking metalish. Doesn't have all the highlights and texture. I mean, we could put textures on our brushes, right? Remember, we did that in class before. We put textures on the brushes. We're going to bring this selection over. I'm going to scoot. Why is it so different? Who did this? It's me. All me, none of you. All right. So I could use this to paint against, I guess. So I can hold the shift key, use magic wand, and oh, that did not work out the way I wanted to. What in the world? Okay, I didn't mean to hit that either. All right, so I'm just gonna paint it and then select out of it. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna explain that in a second. I'm gonna go to a mid-tone gray, and I'm gonna make the brush a little bit bigger and zoom in. And paint it. I'm making a mess, but I'm going to mask it in a second. I'm using a brush with a different opacity. It takes me longer to go over it then. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and use like a mid-tone gray, something like that, nice. Go back to my brush, minimize this. Oops. Didn't really like that. It was straighter. Stop shaking my legs. I'm sitting down. You all know how I don't like sitting down, right? So, because I'm sitting down, I'm getting like restless leg syndrome over here. I'm shaking my entire drawing implement here. Alright. I can't stop doing it. That's really funny. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and so I know it's messy. It's okay that's messy. I gotta zoom back in and do a little bit more damage down there. It's supposed to, I'm trying to make it look good from far away. We're not doing exactly what's there. But I'm gonna get away with this because you're gonna see. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom back out. I'm gonna go to select, load selection, load can. Hit OK. I'm gonna move that. Select transform selection with this guy over here. Make sure he lines up with the top, right? Okay, and then I'm gonna hit this. Let's see how lined up it is before I do this. It's pretty lined up, right? On the sides and such. Now that shrink. It's interesting. Alright, I'm gonna zoom out, and then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go to select inverse. I'm just gonna hit delete on all my can layers. Oops, I didn't mean to delete the whole can. Oops. Minor detail. Alright, so I'm gonna go to select, deselect, and we're gonna see, yeah, it's not too bad. I'll have to go back in and do a little blending here. This little dented down here. I'm not sure what's happening there, but you know, it's getting there, and you guys get the idea. So the assignment is to try out painting metal. You don't have to finish it. I mean, I may finish this, not entirely, put some text on it. So if I was to put text on it without finishing the top, which I started at the top, so I might as well finish part of it. So let me, what layer is this stuff on? All right, let me move that over. I didn't like the way it was looking all weird. I'll probably delete some of that. Whoa, oops. Oops, that's why I can't delete it, all right? So yeah. Okay, so let me just fix this. Try to make it straight. I just didn't really like the way it looked. So I'm gonna go back to select and delete. So select, load selection, go back to my can, hit OK, move it over. I should probably just save it once it's over here. Wow. No, I did not want to do that. Transform selection. And then select inverse. I was always on the wrong layer. Okay, go back to the top layer, hit delete. Alright, so, I mean, I just want to look straighter. I mean, it just looked really bad. And I'm going to go back in, I could paint another curve here if I really, really want. Yeah, I mean, maybe I should do that. So we'll go to select transform selection. It's reversed right now, so I have to remember that. And I'm just scooting it up a little bit. And I'm going to paint a small highlight going across and give it a little bit more bottom. Real slow on the bottom. Why is it not painting anything? Anywhere? This is interesting. Oh, you know what? I'm tired. I'm too tired. Wow. I mean, okay. Yeah, everybody just ignore that. Okay. I was painting with an eraser and I was wondering, yeah, just ignore that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give a little highlight. Oops. Of course, the wrong one again. I want a little bit darker. A little bit darkness down here. Yeah, I could delete some of the excess with the can thing in a second. So I'm going to go to select inverse. Now I'm going to do my little bit of a highlight. Oops. I just need a bigger brush. And I'm going to put another layer on top. I'm going to put very subtle stripe, very large, very subtle. Alright, with white, like 4. Come on, like real low. Right in this section here. See how much difference it did make, though? It really did, right? A little bit right there. And I'm gonna then make it smaller. Okay. Select transform selection again. Alright, it's a lot, I know. It is why you don't have to do the whole thing. Alright, I'm gonna go to select inverse again. Hit delete all the nonsense off the 2 layers. That made a big mess. And then deselect. So we're getting there, right? Yeah, we're getting close to done here. I would probably make this a little bit. This is the top one. Which one was that? That was this one, right? I'm gonna blur that layer right here because that just doesn't quite sit right with me. Maybe it's the bottom. What if I just delete that bottom one? I don't know. Let me try deleting that first. See if I like that better. I'm gonna blur it. I'm gonna go back and fix that somewhere. If I were to actually finish this, let me see. I haven't saved this in a long time. Alright, and then I still have this whole top piece to put in. That's a rough one. Alright, so I'm gonna go to select, load selection. Can top, hit OK. And I can work on that top. It's gonna be tough. I had to move some of this up. Nice highlight there. And the inner part. Maybe I'm going to skip that part for now. You can see how this is coming along. Maybe if I could put Alright, sneezing, no coronavirus that I'm aware of yet. So anyhow, so I could write a company name, logo, and then put it on the side of the can. I'll show you how to do that first instead of wasting my time with this whole top. This top's going to take, quite a bit of time, and this video is already long enough, I'm sure of it. And then maybe I'll finish that off someday, but maybe it doesn't matter for right now, and I'll add it into the video when I do. Alright, so let me go here. I'm going to go to deselect. So Command D, and I deselected at the top for now. I'm going to show you how to put text on it. So I'm going to find a text that I like. And last time we did a bank name, and we called it Santander's Little Flame or something like that. I forgot. So we can go on the internet and find out a company name, steal their logo. Let's see what they have. All right. Let's see. Let's try not to make one that's already out there. Let's try to find if we did something like investors savings logo. Maybe investors starts making their own beer or seltzer. Maybe investors seltzer. Maybe it doesn't have to be beer, right? So